May 30th. Hello, my fellow truth seekers, and welcome to Shadow at Night. This is Thursday, May the 30th, 2024. Donald Trump has been found guilty on all 34 counts in the hush money case today in New York. And so we'll go through all of the reaction, including Donald Trump's own statement from a couple of hours ago in New York City. How are the Democrats responding to this? How is middle America, how are average Americans responding to this? We'll find out all of that stuff, including all the details you need to know. Can he run for president now because he's guilty? All of those things coming up in just a couple of moments here on the Shadow at Night live stream. We were to have Donald Best on the show tonight. In case you're unfamiliar with Donald, he is a former police officer turned private investigator, and he's been covering the Helen Grus tribunal. I keep wanting to say trial, but it's not a trial. He's been covering the tribunal for, well, I guess the better part of a year now, and he was to come on the show tonight, but I talked to him on the phone this afternoon. Great conversation, by the way. Nice guy, this Donald Best, just looking for the truth like all of us, right? He's testifying at the National Citizens Inquiry in Regina on Saturday, so he's making his way now from his home in Northern Ontario, driving all the way to Regina to be there to testify on Saturday. So he couldn't be with us tonight, obviously. We'll try and get him to come on next week. A couple of very fascinating telephone calls we had today, including a guy named David Steffen. You may recall that name if you live in Alberta, who has been screwed over by Health Canada for almost 20 years now. There's a movie coming out about that, a documentary actually, and we'll explore that. It's getting screenings all across the country right now. And we'll explore that with David Steffen next week. And Boyd Anderson is coming on the show next week to talk about those biospheres in Saskatchewan. He's been actually speaking with some members of UNESCO, which is the United Nations organization that is taking care of these biospheres. And I'm curious to see what they have to say about all of this and what it means going forward. Why are there biospheres in Saskatchewan, for goodness sakes? So, it's always interesting to hear what Boyd has to say. So he's going to be joining the show next week as well. The Shadow at Night live stream, as always, is brought to you by Canada Nano Silver, CanadaNanoSilver.ca. The Nano Silver Gel Pump, my friends. Treat your skin to the natural and soothing effects of Nano Silver Gel in an easy-to-use pump style. Apply it daily anywhere on your face and body to help soften, soothe, hydrate, promote natural healing. Quickly calms and cools your skin, providing relief that can last for hours. It's safe and can be used by infants and adults alike, even on the most sensitive skin. It absorbs quickly and can be used under makeup. So to summarize for you, in case you're wondering, am I going to be allergic to this? Fast-absorbing, non-greasy, water-based, moisture-donating, colorless, odorless, natural pH, alcohol-free, paraben-free, BPA-free as well. Get this and all of the other fantastic products available online at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Don't forget, $2 from every purchase goes towards recouping some of the funds that Ken and Rosalie Drysdale are putting into, and we're talking about thousands of dollars here now, into the Stronger Together Conference in Beausejour, Manitoba, set for June 21st, 22nd, and 23rd. You can find out more about that if you want to go, including the price of tickets and what you get for that at ManitobaStrongerTogether.ca. If you're looking for retail locations for Canada Nano Silver, you can find them right here on the Retail Locations tab. And if you'd like to be a retailer yourself of these awesome products, get a hold of Kevin and Anna through the contact tab at CanadaNanoSilver.ca. Who is here tonight watching on Facebook or X or Rumble or YouTube even? Yes, I've got some stuff tonight coming up on the show that may get me banned once and for all from YouTube. Maybe even Facebook. We'll see what happens. as the hour goes on. But if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube right now and the show suddenly cuts out, there's your warning. Hello, Vivian, watching from Edmonton, Canada's first 15-minute city. We're going to explore that with a 38-second clip from the mayor of Edmonton coming up a little bit later on in the show. Hello, Lisa, watching tonight. Irina's watching from Red Deer. Oh, that's where they're having the big Canadians for Truth event. I'm going to tell you about that in just a second. Hello, Stephen. Just got in. Hello, Canada and the international community. Where are you watching from, though, Stephen? Everybody, please put down where you're. I like to do this because I want to give everybody the feel that this is a national and even international show. Kurt is watching from Winkler tonight. Rose is watching in Woodbridge, Ontario. Sashida is in Kingston, my old stomping grounds, Kingston, Ontario. K-Town. Hello, Celine, watching in Sherbrooke, Quebec. Kev is watching in his backyard, cutting dead trees and watching in his backyard. Another Stephen's watching in Trenton, and Debbie is watching in Arborg, Manitoba tonight. If you're watching on Facebook or X, please give us a like and a share. Let's get this show out there to as many people as we possibly can. So like and share on Facebook. Don't forget, do it now. I'll give you a couple of seconds. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like. Okay, there's your like. Now share it. Put something interesting in the caption so that people don't just pass by it. They're scrolling, and then they see this thing that you've shared, but they don't know what it is, so they just keep going. Tell them, watch this. It's interesting. It might learn you something. If you're watching on X tonight, don't forget it's a repost and a heart. Thank you very much. If you're watching on Rumble tonight, like Cheryl I.M. from Gloucester, or Nana Sue in Stonecliff, Ontario, Little Farmers watching in Lindsay, Ontario tonight, Winston Smith, 2024. That's the main character from 1984, of course. Winston Smith is watching from Winnipeg tonight. Hello, McFad and CMS 344. Karobi's watching on Vancouver Island. Hello, Amnesty. Little Brown Jug is watching, and Starliner 1961 is watching from Winnipeg. If you're watching on Rumble, first things first, thumb it up. Let's get it out there to as many people amongst the 100 million strong Rumble community that we possibly can. Then if you want to share with Rumble, you can go ahead and hit the share button beneath the screen. That will highlight the URL above the screen. You copy and paste that and stick it into your favorite social media, email, or group, whatever. Let's get this out there to as many people as we possibly can. All right. There is an event coming up in Red Deer on June the 15th. It's called From Service to Solutions. Insights from military veterans. Collaborate, learn, network, and gain insight into Canada and our future. Presented by Canadians for Truth and Veterans for Freedom, this event offers a unique opportunity to connect with recent veterans who provide behind-the-scenes looks at the issues shaping Canada's future. Hear from a former intelligence officer with 30 years of national security experience and an Air Force squadron leader who served with both the Canadian and British Armed Forces, and others with unique and compelling experiences. Their firsthand insights provide a unique perspective on the challenges and opportunities ahead in our country. Seize this opportunity to hear directly from our veterans whose sacrifices, experiences, and commitment to service provide invaluable perspectives that enrich our understanding of the challenges facing Canada. With 6 dynamic presentations, networking opportunities, and a fire and ice finale, this event is your ticket to empowerment and connection. It's coming up at Legacy Place in Red Deer from 1 p.m. It's a long day, 1 p.m. until 9:30 p.m. Again, Legacy Place in Red Deer, Saturday, June the 15th. Let's give you a little bit more insight now into what exactly they're going to be doing out there.
If you're surprised by what's going on in society, it means that your model of society is wrong. Your core assumptions are wrong, right? And that means that you're not prepared for whatever's coming in the future. And we have a lot of people in society that are surprised by what's happening. And that's because their baseline assumptions on human nature, the way society works, the way government works, all that sort of stuff, they're just wrong.
We have seen what happens in good countries. We've seen what happens in bad countries. So right now we see a lot of bad things happening in Canada. So we're trying to send up a warning flare.
Believes there is ample evidence that Canada is the target of significant and sustained foreign interference activities.
Liberal and Conservative MPs sparred Tuesday over bombshell allegations of Chinese interference.
A troubling new report from the RCMP tonight. It's investigating claims of criminal activity at so-called police stations allegedly set up by China's government.
Our top story is focused on a controversial procurement contract. It's between the RCMP and Sinclair Technologies, a communications company that is partly owned by China.
And it found the federal government's engagement with provincial and municipal governments and the Canadian public on the threat from foreign interference has been limited.
And your everyday Canadian citizen doesn't understand what warfare is, or information warfare, psychological warfare, fifth generational warfare. But that's a lot of our men and women in our organization specialize in aspects of warfare. And unfortunately, the global elites, the government are waging war against their own citizens.
All right, that event again is coming up on June the 15th in Red Deer at Legacy Place from 1 until 9:30. Oh my goodness, did I just get rid of everything that I was going to talk about here? I believe I did, so I'm going to have to go back and get it. That's all right, we can do that. June the 15th at Legacy Place in Red Deer. For more information or your tickets, go to CanadiansForTruth.ca. Again, that is CanadiansForTruth.ca, and check it out. Very reasonably priced. All right. Yeah, here we go. There we go. All right. It's back, everybody. I thought all of the material I was going to use on the show tonight was gone, but it's not. Thank you, Jesus. All right, let's get going here with the show. And Donald Trump, as you've probably heard, has been found guilty on all charges in the hush money case. This comes from the Daily Wire. So we're going to do about 10 or 15 minutes on this, you guys. It is huge news. Hang on just a minute. I got to get rid of that stuff at the bottom of the screen. Live TV is always so much fun. Anyway, here we go. There's the picture of Donnie. Former President Donald Trump responded to the guilty verdict that he received in a Manhattan courtroom today by saying that the real verdict would be delivered on Election Day by the American people. We have that video. Everything is going to be a little bit delayed tonight. All of the material that I've gathered tonight is reloading itself right now. So there's going to be a few seconds of delay between stories. I hope you don't mind that. We'll see that video, the statement by Donald Trump, in just a couple of minutes here. Anyway, Trump said the real verdict would be delivered on Election Day by the American people. Jurors convicted Trump on all 34 counts in the controversial hush money case. Legal experts say the ruling will be quickly appealed by Trump's legal team. This was a disgrace. This was a rigged trial by a conflicted judge who was corrupt, Trump said after the verdict was read. We'll get to that. We'll get to that in just a second. You'd rather hear it from him anyway, right? So we're not going to go ahead and read all his statement here. We'll just play it for you. Let's see if we have it here. Yeah, here it is. All right. I wish I could get rid of those things. There we go. All right. That's better. That's much better. One mistake, one little mistake, one little flick of the finger, and everything you've worked for all day is gone. All right, here's Donald Trump reacting to the verdict today. Guilty on all 34 counts.
It's a rigged trial, a disgrace. They wouldn't give us a venue change. We were at 5% or 6% in this district, in this area. Trial. The real verdict is going to deserved by the people. And they know what happened here, and everybody knows what happened here. You have a Soros-backed DA and the whole thing. We didn't do a thing wrong. I'm a very innocent man. It's okay. I'm fighting for our country. I'm fighting for our Constitution. Our whole country is being rigged right now. This was done by the Biden administration in order to wound or hurt an opponent, a political opponent. And I think it's just a disgrace. And we'll keep fighting anymore. We have a divided mess. We're a nation in decline, serious decline. Millions and millions of people pouring into our country right now from prisons and from mental institutions, terrorists, and they're taking over our country. We have a country that's in big trouble, but this was a rigged decision right from day one with a conflicted judge who should have never been allowed to try this case. Never over. Thank you very much.
Yeah, he sounds serious, doesn't he? So, what was the reaction of most people today on social media? Well, there's some good, there's a lot of good, and there's a lot of bad, obviously. This one from Joey Manarino, who says, as of today, with this fake guilty verdict against Trump, America is no longer the United States. We're a third world shithole, pardon the language here, heading for a civil war. I think there's going to be something crazy that happens before the election and after the election, although I can't tell you what it is. I wish I could. I have no desire to see this country... What? I have no desire to see this country to unify. There's no country to unite. We are long past that. Ooh, dude. That's pretty heavy. People are angry, obviously. Che Arachik says, raise your hand if you're more excited now than ever to vote for Trump in November. A lot of people are saying that. Blair White. Anyways, I'm still voting for Donald Trump. Now, this is... I'm not going to say the N-word. Not because it's not politically correct, because I just don't think it's nice. It's just not a nice thing to say. So I'm not going to say it. I don't even like it when anybody uses it. Never mind somebody who is not black. But anyway, thank you for your donation. Apparently the donation site, right after the verdict, the donation site, Trump's donation site crashed because of heavy traffic. There's the reaction again. Candace Owen says, we just live in a banana republic, guys. Time to accept that. Nothing is legitimate, not the media, our elections, or the courts. And I believe the same thing goes for our country. We need somebody to straighten that out, not just one person. We need to do that ourselves. This guilty verdict doesn't shame Trump. It shames our country. The persistence. I'm not running away. In fact, I'm biking with a Trump sign on my back in Fairfax County, Virginia, getting a ton of honks and support. Well, let's see what this person has to say here.
This is Scott Pressler. Today, President Trump was found guilty on 34 counts, and I'm not running away from it. In fact, I'm biking towards it. I'm off of Burke Center Parkway right now with a Trump sign on my back that I have as a backpack, and I'm getting a lot of honks. Do not cower, do not run, do not hide. Register to vote at your current address. Get everybody you know registered to vote. And we are coming, and we will vote with ballots on Tuesday, November 5th, 2024. It's go time.
You know, guys, there's a lot of... what's this now? Well, this is new to me because everything reloaded, but sometimes Twitter X doesn't reload to where I was before. But I hadn't seen this up until now. Polling Canada tells us new survey from Ipsos suggests 13% of Canadians consider themselves LGBT plus, the fourth highest behind the Netherlands, Thailand, and Brazil. Yeah, sure they do. This brings me to a point that I was going to make anyway. And that point is that I was having this conversation with Donald Best this afternoon, as I was telling you guys earlier, and he spends a lot of time in Asia, Thailand, and Vietnam, because he has family there. And I said, what's it like in Vietnam? Because Vietnam is a communist nation. He goes, I'll tell you, man, the societal structure that they have there is absolutely incredible. If you lose your job in a place like Vietnam, the entire community will buck you up until you find a new one, right? So that means that they will feed you, they will clothe you if you can't clothe yourself and your family. They'll do whatever they can. And that's not because they have to, they're forced into it by the government. It's because that's the mentality over there. He said, the only things you can't do are talk ill about the military or the government. If you do that, somebody snitches on you, they're going to come knocking on your door at 3:00 in the morning. So he said, what would you rather have? Would you rather have that kind of community bond? And there's no LGBT there. There's none of this division that we have over here. So would you rather have that community bond without being able to criticize the government, or would you rather have what we have here, which is being able, I guess to a point, to criticize the government, but having to be politically correct and walk through these LGBTQ/climate change minefields every single day, making sure you don't say anything wrong so as you wouldn't offend anybody and get attacked and canceled and lose your job and lose everything? That's a tough one, isn't it? What he was saying to me was that life is better for an average common sense person in Vietnam, a communist nation, than it is in Canada. I've never been to Vietnam, so I can't offer an opinion on this, but that's what Donald said today, Donald Best, who's going to be coming on the show at some point next week. Interesting. What would write it down in the comments, guys. What would you rather what situation would you rather find yourself in? This one, the one we have right now with all the BS, or the Vietnamese situation, communist government, no voting, well, they vote, but come on. I mean, there's no real elections over there. You can't criticize the government. You can't even speak ill about the government, even in your home. But the trade-off for that is the community supports you to the nth, and there's no division. There's none of that stuff at all. No crap like we go through every single day. Which one would you prefer? I want to see what you have to say in the comment section. Now, speaking of Donald, we were going to have him on the show tonight. He's been covering the Helen Grus tribunal, but like I said, he is on his way to Regina, driving on his way to Regina from northern Ontario somewhere, to testify at the National Citizens Inquiry, which kicked off today, by the way, and goes through till Saturday. So if you want to watch some of that live, you can do it at nationalcitizensinquiry.ca. All one word, nationalcitizensinquiry.ca. So detective is from tnc.news. Detective facing discreditable conduct charge for probing COVID vaccines takes stand in her own defense. Of course, we're talking about Detective Helen Grus here. So for those of you that don't know the story, little more than 6 weeks before Ottawa, and so corrupt this tribunal apparently, little more than 6 weeks before Ottawa Police Service enforced its COVID vaccine mandate, high-ranking officers, including then-Chief Peter Slowly, heard vaccine injury testimonials from several officers, according to Detective Helen Grus's testimony at her disciplinary hearing, which resumed on Monday. The 20-year OPS veteran and mother of three stands accused of discreditable conduct under the Provincial Police Services Act for probing a possible link between the COVID vaccines and an uptick in local sudden infant deaths. I'll describe more about that in just a second. As Grus has not spoken to journalists about these allegations, this week's hearing has been the first opportunity for the public to hear her version of the story. They spoke at this town hall and told their stories, Grus said, of a December 16th, 2021 meeting between rank-and-file members and police brass. They wanted Chief Slowly and Deputy Chief Trish Ferguson to hear what was going on and their concerns, all of our concerns. Appearing as a witness in her own defense, the former sex assault and child abuse detective testified that Slowly and then Staff Service Sergeant Peter Daniluk were also the only senior members she got any feedback from regarding her suspicion COVID shots may have played a role in the deaths of these 9 babies. Grus has testified, Grus testified that she presented what amounted to preliminary findings at a January 3rd, 2022 town hall meeting showing a 2 or 3 times increase in sudden infant deaths since the vaccine rollout compared to a typical year. Now, what we heard apparently in testimony this week was that 2 of these 9 babies who died, allegedly from their mother being vaccinated. We don't know that for sure. There has been allegations, but no proof because they've shut everything down, remember. That 2 of these 9 babies actually died in their mother's arms. Now, the person who made that testimony said that that is such a rare thing. That's never happened. I believe it was a nurse who was testifying. She said she has seen that happen once in 30 years. Once in 30 years. Not twice in the span of 1 month, where a baby, and I know it's sad to hear this stuff, you guys, but this is why Detective Grus was investigating in the first place. You don't hear of babies dying in their mother's arms, newborns, twice in 1 month. Before Grus could continue her probe, this investigation that she had launched, she was put on a leave of absence for refusing to get the COVID vaccine. She was suspended with pay February 4th while Internal Affairs began investigating her conduct. Grus maintained investigating sudden deaths of children 5 and under was part of her job. According to her testimony, Slowly was aware of possible vaccine injuries among police members as far back as September of 2021, when Grus sent a mass email to police members questioning the safety of these shots and whether OPS would assume all liabilities for any negative health outcomes associated with mandating it across the force. Is OPS aware of the adverse effects their own membership has experienced upon receipt of the EUA shots against SARS-CoV-2, asked Grus in her September electronic missive, the preamble of which praises Canada, its freedoms enshrined in the Constitution, and how Christianity informs her values in life and policing. Grus testified she knew of 4 colleagues who suffered heart issues following the COVID shots. Neither the OPS nor the Ottawa Police Association Union have responded to requests about the number of officers who've reported these types of injuries. Grus testified this week that she believed if the COVID shots were responsible for the infant deaths, criminal negligence could be at play, as government agencies and their officials had consistently assured the public the shots were safe and effective. And we know now that they knew they weren't and went ahead and said those things anyway. Grus's SACA colleague, Detective Chris Botcher, one of 7 police witnesses for the prosecution, described her letter during cross-examination last year as a manifesto of the right wing. And while Grus's September email earned her a mention from the chief, who thanked her in an email for her concerns, Grus was rebuked for posting it by overreaching by her overarching supervisor, Staff Sergeant Shelley Rossetti, and immediate supervisor, Sergeant Marc-Andre Guy. Both ordered Grus to refrain from talking about COVID or the shots at work. Wow. Wow. An element of her misconduct charge hinges on the allegation she engaged in an unsanctioned special project and interfered in a lead investigator's file by calling the father of a deceased child to determine the vaccine status of the mother. But during testimony in January, Staff Sergeant Major Daniluk told the tribunal that he spoke with Grus about her probe, and as far as he was concerned, nothing seemed amiss. Excuse me. She wasn't asking my permission. She was just bouncing ideas off me like I've seen the statistical anomaly. I think she said it was double the amount of SIDS, Daniluk told the tribunal. It's so basic, it didn't raise any red flags for me. Grus's counsel, Bathsheba Vandenberg, also asked her client about a 2023 performance review, and the detective constable read into the record another exemplary evaluation. Though suspended with pay February 4th of 2022, pending an investigation, then charged at the end of July, Grus said she was brought back into the OPS fold in late October of that same year and assigned to the robbery unit, where she continues to work while dealing with the ongoing misconduct charges. So far, apparently it has cost her upwards of $250,000. Well, all the other people in that courtroom are being paid to be there. Like previous stellar performance reviews in 2020 and 2021 from her SACA superiors, Grus's latest evaluation of her robbery unit work concluded she meets or exceeds all expectations. According to her 2023 detective stats, Grus converted 73 investigation files into 151 criminal charges. I was actually very relieved and grateful, said Grus of her 2023 post-charge review. I love policing. I'm happy to be in the robbery unit working with some of the best officers, and this just solidified that I can still do the job actively, even under pressure, even under the pressure and the charges I'm facing. As for the discreditable conduct charge, Grus denies she's guilty based on her adherence to Sir Robert Peel's 1829 Principles of Policing, an unofficial credo about protecting the public by upholding the law without fear or favor. We're not there to public pander to public opinion. My duty as a police officer is to preserve life and property, preserve the peace. And if I see any one of those situations arising where I need to step in to preserve life, I will do something. And that's what I did in good faith as a police officer. Police prosecutor Vanessa Stewart and Jessica Barrow of Ottawa law firm Purley Robertson, Hill and McDougall are expected to cross-examine Grus later on this week. All right, we have one more here. Robert Krajcik of Rebel News filed this little 2-minute report. Let's give it a listen.
Bathsheba Vandenberg, the defense attorney for Constable Helen Grus, offered 2 defenses today of her client in the disciplinary tribunal, in which Helen Grus is accused by her employer, the Ottawa Police Service, of having committed discreditable conduct in her capacity as a police officer. Specifically, Helen Grus was inquiring in 2021 about a possible link between an increase in infant deaths brought to the OPS's attention and the rollout and promotion of the so-called COVID-19 vaccines. Helen Grus worked in the Sexual Assault and Child Abuse Unit, SACA, the SACA unit of the OPS. So these sorts of deaths fell under her purview in her capacity in that role. So the first defense offered by Vandenberg for her client is that Helen Grus operated with reasonable care. Now, what does that mean? Vandenberg is saying that Helen Grus took reasonable measures, accurate measures, to aggregate facts and information and data upon which to form the basis of this inquiry. Vandenberg said that Helen Grus took, quote, positive steps to find out the correct information, and that these were the facts upon which Helen Grus held her honest beliefs. The second defense offered for her client was that Helen Grus operated with due diligence. This specifically refers to her claim that Helen Grus operated within the chain of command, within the ethics and instructions, the conventions of the Ottawa Police Service. Now, keep in mind that the OPS is alleging that Helen Grus had been insubordinate and had violated the chain of command. Vandenberg said that Helen Grus, quote, took all reasonable steps to avoid circumventing the chain of command and to inform her seniors, and that both these defenses, the reasonable care and due diligence defenses, render Helen Grus's actions innocent.
Okay, so a couple of guys I've spoken to today, we'll get to that story in a second. Donald Best and Vincent Gerses by direct message on Twitter. And I'm paraphrasing here. I don't want to quote these guys and say, this is a direct quote, because it's not. But Vincent Gerses, who's also a former police officer who's been following this case as well, say this is probably, and remember, between these two guys, we're talking about over 50, maybe even 60 years of police experience. This is the biggest whitewash that I've ever seen. They have no chance of conviction here, but they'll probably get one anyway. I said, what are the chances of appeal? Well, then what happens? She can't go to court after this. She would have to go to the Ontario Police Board and go through another one of these kangaroo courts. And then finally, she could go to an actual court to have her case heard, all the while bleeding money. As I said, so far, this has cost her $250,000, while everybody else in the courtroom is earning money to be there. She is bleeding money to be there. But she believes in herself, she believes in her police work, and she believes what she believes. And she was doing an investigation, which she is perfectly eligible and warranted to do in her former position. And so she did it. And look what's happened to her. Who is controlling this? There's a movie coming out I referenced earlier in the show called The People versus David and Colette Stephan. Now, this is having screenings all across the country. Next week, they're going to be in Kelowna and Calgary. They're going to be in Winnipeg some point in the next couple of weeks. And I'm going to have David Stephan on to discuss this in detail with us at some point next week. It's a very long and involved story, but it also has to do with tampering in the court system, the police services, and within the government itself, by what he seems to feel. And again, he hasn't been able to connect all the dots on this, and this is only a feeling that he told me today on the phone, that Big Pharma is involved in this. So let's move back to the Helen Grus case. Do you think that Big Pharma, through government, possibly could have anything to do with what's happened to Detective Helen Grus? Absolutely, they could. Big Pharma is in control of our government at every single level. So think about that. It's very interesting when you just take a couple of steps back from all of this and go, well, this is outrageous. This never should be happening. What would be a police officer's motivation for wanting to whitewash something, especially to a historically great officer with a spotless track record, 20 years? And it seems as though all of her colleagues, Helen Grus, all of her colleagues absolutely love her. Why would they want to nail her to the cross over simply wanting to conduct an investigation that she was well within her rights to do? Very interesting. And they don't want coverage of this. So, of course, the left-wing corporate media is hardly covering this at all. And if they do, they cover it from the police services side, not Helen's side. And Helen has chosen not to speak with them, and I absolutely agree with that decision. But the media, for the most part, the left-wing corporate media, has said nothing at all about this, like it's not newsworthy. Dave Freedom, our buddy Dave Freedom, yes, that's his real name, a great legal mind, not a lawyer, but a great legal mind in Canada, thinks this case is the most important case in the entire country right now. More than Pat King, more than the Coots trial. Because it's going to set a very dangerous precedent for police and how they operate. They're turning a public police service into a Gestapo that takes orders from government, and government's not supposed to have anything to do with policing. Arm's length. They can make suggestions, but no tactical decisions. They can't force investigations. They're not supposed to do that under our system. But are they? Are they attempting to? I've heard from police officers from services all across the country that say, I have never seen the amount of pressure, outside pressure, that I've seen in the service in the past 4 years. Where is the pressure coming from? They say, I don't know, but it's there. You can feel it. It's not good for morale either for our police services, not to mention the fact that people are looking at them differently these days in the public, and they know why. They certainly know why. Okay, this story comes from TNC.news. City News, which is Rogers-owned left-wing corporate media, they've got individual stations across the country. I'm not sure if it's an actual network, though. City News walks back false claim that 215 residential school graves were discovered. What? Why would they do something like that? Wouldn't they want to stand by their story? We know it's a BS narrative, but let's go ahead and read the story. City News quietly erased the fact that it falsely reported 215 graves were uncovered at the site of the former residential school in Kamloops, following a post on the social media outlet X that was flagged as misinformation. Oh, that's why. City News Vancouver has since deleted a tweet and revised an article that inaccurately claimed hundreds of unmarked graves, quote unquote, were discovered at the Kamloops Indian residential school site. The post was flagged by ex-users as misleading, prompting the addition of a community note. City News edited the article to include the word suspected about the graves, which is still over the top in my opinion. Journalist Asa Pandy Kennan's name was removed from the piece as well, and that was flagged obviously by Jonathan Kay here, who's a pretty entertaining poster on X as well. May 27th marks a grim anniversary. 3 years ago Monday, hundreds of unmarked graves were discovered at a residential school site in Kamloops. The original post by City News Vancouver read. The amended paragraph read differently. May 27th marks a grim anniversary. 3 years ago Monday, the Kamloops Tsewepmek First Nation released the preliminary findings of its investigation, saying hundreds of suspected unmarked graves were discovered at a residential school site in Kamloops. Of course, they're not graves. It's been 3 years since they were discovered, and the only thing they've ever used to confirm that anything's there in the first place is this ground-penetrating radar. They have not allowed any digs at all on the site because of the sacred nature of the ground. Some people have tried to go there in the middle of the night with shovels and dig up some bones, but they get stopped by the cops almost every single time. But it's an ongoing thing and has been for the past 3 years. True North reached out to City News Vancouver for comment, but guess what? No response. The unverified announcement from 2021 captured global attention and resulted in the Liberal government lowering flags to half-mast for months. The international media storm also led to an official visit by Pope Francis to Canada. By the way, Pope Francis will be included in this show a little bit later on. What's next? Oh, right. What's going to be the first 15-minute city in Canada? Well, Boyd Anderson said last week on this show he thinks it's going to be Vancouver. And I thought, well, what about Edmonton? Everybody's always talking about Edmonton when it comes to the 15-minute cities. And Wokeness on X today says Edmonton, Canada has begun the process of becoming a 15-minute city. Mayor Amarjeet says, we need a cohesive city. 1 minute, 16-second clip here.
We are building a cohesive city with opportunities for local living.
Population is rapidly growing, and we have to be able to accommodate for that. Right now, the plans we have are kind of Frankenstein together over decades.
The 15 new district plans and corresponding bylaws will replace 54 existing planning documents dating back to the 1980s.
Our city is growing. And the more we can accommodate within existing infrastructure and existing neighborhoods, better it is for the taxpayers as well.
Administration says the goal is to accommodate 600,000 new residents in redeveloped areas, with 50% of all new home units added through infill. The plan also calls for half of all future travel to be done by transit, and for residents to access all their daily needs within 15 minutes. Not everyone supports the plan.
My understanding is that this means I will need to stay within my district to meet all my needs so that the city can meet its climate plan objectives.
I don't think Edmontonians can afford to be part of a renovation experiment of this size so quickly.
I think unfortunately a lot of the district plan in particular have been derailed by 15-minute cities, conspiracy theories, World Economic Forums, etc. At the end of the day, this is about land use.
Let's go back a minute here. Let's go back to right about the middle. Can we do that here? Yeah, well, we'll just start from the beginning.
And the more we can accommodate within existing infrastructure and existing neighborhoods, better it is for the taxpayers as well.
Administration says the goal
Okay, listen to what this reporter says.
Is to accommodate 600,000 new residents in redeveloped areas, with 50% of all new home units added through infill. The plan
600,000 new residents. They're expecting 600,000 new residents in Edmonton. In what kind of a time frame? Is this in the next 10 years? That's outrageous. Or is this a 2050 thing? All right, let's continue.
And also calls for half of all future travel to be done by transit. And
Half of all future travel to be done by transit. So what does that mean? They're going to force us out of our cars? How can some reporter sit there reading, she's reading off her script, by the way, half of all travel to be done by transit. She's not even understanding what it is she's saying here. People love their cars. They don't want to give up their cars. They would rather drive to work than take transit, and will only take transit if absolutely, completely forced to. Wouldn't you agree? But this one, 50%.
and for residents to access all their daily needs within 15 minutes.
Okay, so we can get all our daily needs in 15 minutes. We can already do that. I mean, if you live in a city, you should know that your doctor is probably within your neighborhood, right? Your dentist, your hairstylist, your grocery store, anything you need. My parents lived in a part of Winnipeg called Transcona all of their lives. Well, not all of their lives, but I'm going to say from their early 20s until they died. They never left Transcona, ever. I mean, for them to travel west of Lagimodiere Boulevard was like historic. It would be like, whoa, Dad, I can't even believe that you've decided to go west of Lagimodiere Boulevard. That's amazing. Congratulations, buddy. They never ever. So we've already got that in place. It's already there. Or they're talking about 15 minutes walking or biking. Well, I've got that already. As you guys know, I don't have a car, so I do a lot of walking. And I can get to my grocery store. I can get to my hairstylist. I got a dentist in the neighborhood. There's a doctor in the neighborhood. I got a hospital right next door to me. Everything I need, restaurants, all of that stuff, is within 15 minutes of me on foot. So why do they have to make these plans? Why do they have to make this? I get it. I know. Because they're planning on the geofencing. And it wouldn't surprise me if there's already an organization in Edmonton called Blade Runners West. Because you've heard about the Blade Runners in the UK, right? Knocking down the cameras and whatnot, and the sensors, the geofencing sensors, which, by the way, are up probably in every major city. We just need to know what they look like so we can,
Not everyone supports the plan.
My understanding is that this means I will need to stay within my district to meet all my needs so that the city can meet its climate plan objectives.
I don't think Edmontonians can afford to be part of a renovation experiment of this size so quickly.
I think, unfortunately, a lot of the district plan in particular have been derailed by 15-minute cities, conspiracy theories, World Economic Forums, etc. At the end of the day, this is about...
She sit there and say conspiracy theories when it's all on the World Economic Forum website. And it's all on the United Nations website. Go look at it. No, it's a conspiracy theories. Shut up. That is your typical city councilor right there. Somebody who is either in denial or hasn't read the material available, which is readily available to anybody, as you know. Instead, she would rather call names. Conspiracy theories. Here's another one. This is from Rebel News now, staying with Alberta. Alberta condemns Orwellian bill that threatens fines for supporting oil and gas. I thought this was already gone. It was a private member's bill put forth by Charlie Angus, the NDP moron from Ontario North. But I guess it's back. Bill C-59, put plain and simply, is an undemocratic gag order, said Environment Minister of Alberta, Rebecca Schultz. Any company not willing to risk millions of dollars in fines will be forced to stay silent. So here's the story. Private member's bill threatening oil and gas advocates with jail time has secretly made its way to the parliament in separate legislation. Oh, so they tried to pass it as an omnibus, didn't work, so they try to sneak it through differently now. In February, federal NDP MP Charlie Angus introduced a bill that threatened fines and jail time for Canada's oil and gas industry if they tried to defend their record on the environment, reads a statement from Alberta's Environment Minister Rebecca Schultz. Bill C-372, an act respecting fossil fuel advertising, attempted to bar positive messaging of fossil fuels. It proposed restrictions on industry professionals, advertisers, and media companies would prevent the public of being deceived or misled with respect to the environmental and health hazards of using fossil fuels to enhance public awareness of those hazards. The bill received a first reading February 5th by its sponsor, again, Charlie Angus, but received no further consideration in this iteration of it. At the time, he said it would target industry propaganda that considers oil and gas a part of the climate solution. Canadians were immediately outraged, and the bill was laughed away as being just plain crazy. But guess what? It's back. Here's Charlie Angus doing a press conference about it.
Has always relied on the big tobacco playbook of delay and disinformation. And so to tackle this immense threat to human health, we need to use many of the strategies that finally took down big tobacco. In 1997,
Excuse me. Wait a minute. Hold on. Did they really take down big tobacco? I still see people smoking everywhere, all the time. Gonna go out for a smoke? You walk into a restaurant and there's usually 3 or 4 people hanging around outside having a butt. So tell me again how they took down big tobacco. Can you still buy cigarettes in Canada? I think you can. You've got to be a certain age, though. 16 or something? Isn't there a picture of an old guy at most convenience stores? In order to buy cigarettes, you must look like Charlie. Something like that. So nobody has taken down big tobacco. You can still buy cigarettes. You can still buy snuff, and you can still buy chewing tobacco and cigars. This guy is what a disaster he's been. And they kept voting him in because he's NDP. But he's not running in the next election. Thank God.
the Canadian Parliament banned advertising from big tobacco because of the clear threat to human health. This is why I'm so proud to stand here today with representatives of Canada's medical community to state that the time has come to ban all oil and gas advertising.
And equating oil and gas to cigarettes. So oil and gas, without oil and gas, we freeze and starve. And we're immobilized instantly in a country of this size, especially any country, but a country of this size, Canada, without oil and gas. Can you imagine? That would be it. We'd be back in the Stone Ages. And this idiot equates it with cigarettes. Anyway, they're trying to bring the bill back, and Alberta is calling them on it because it's the stupidest thing that you're ever going to see and has no chance of passing, in my opinion. If it goes I'll keep my eye on it for you. And if it goes any further, you guys, I will definitely let you know. In the meantime, take some action and write NDP MP Charlie Angus and call him a moron for me, please. Or you can write a nicely stated letter saying, I disagree with you and oil and gas should be allowed to advertise. And by the way, how much oil and gas advertising do you even see out there anyway? Do they need to advertise? I suppose Esso versus Shell versus Husky, but you don't see a lot of it. What is he even talking about? After a Jewish school was shot at over the weekend in Toronto, Premier Doug Ford has a message for newcomers. Don't come to Canada if you're going to start terrorizing neighborhoods. It's as simple as that. Here he is.
We will throw every single resource. We've increased funding for the police, and we've also given thousands of dollars to places of worship if they feel threatened. But folks, let's cut to the chase here. What lunatic goes around shooting up schools? Like that is just unacceptable. Imagine that. Imagine a little kid in a school because they're from the Jewish faith. Someone goes by and starts shooting through the school windows. These guys need to be caught. They need to be punished. They need to be thrown in jail. And I'll tell you, we have zero tolerance for this anywhere in Ontario, and it doesn't matter what race, what creed, what religion you're from. I'd be saying the exact same thing if it was another community as well. But enough is enough. You're bringing your problems from everywhere else in the world. You're bringing it to Ontario, and you're going after other Canadians, as the Prime Minister said. Unacceptable. I got an idea. Before you plan on moving to Canada, don't come to Canada if you're going to start terrorizing neighborhoods like this. Simple as that. You want to come to Canada. You want to be a resident of Ontario. You get along with everyone. I don't care what background, what religion, what race you come from. You know, the diversity is our number one selling tool around the world. We have 110 nationalities here in Ontario, 200 languages being spoken. And guess what? 99% of the people get along. There's wars going all around the world, but we still get along. So all this other nonsense that we've been seeing over numbers and numbers of months, enough is enough. I'm just had it up to here. And guess what? People outside those communities, they've had it too. They aren't used to this happening here in Ontario. I'm done with this stuff.
Well, interesting that he would throw in a couple of extreme left-wing dog whistles. Diversity is our number one selling tool and all of that stuff. I agree with his sentiment, though. If you plan on coming to Canada just so you can go ahead and shoot at Jews or Palestinians or whoever, then no, that's not cool and you shouldn't come here. Now, after this statement today, little less than 2 minutes, all of the political leaders of the left, national and provincial, screaming and yelling, bigot, racist. You can go ahead and find it on X if you like. It's actually quite hilarious. So you see, even as he tries to pander to the left a little bit in that speech, he still gets attacked. Because it's not about what's right. It's about partisan politics and extremism. And that's what we're seeing from politicians these days, which is absolutely unacceptable. I agree, like I said, I agree with Doug Ford on that particular point, even if he did bend over backwards a little bit to pander to the other side. All right, this from Blog TO, speaking of Toronto. People will be riding around naked on bikes in Toronto next week, and there they are. That's quite a sight. Toronto will be overrun with buck-naked bike riders next week as the annual World Naked Bike Ride returns. If hundreds of bikers clad in their finery driving through the city last month wasn't au naturel enough for you, yet another group of bikers on bicycles this time is taking to the streets in nothing but their birthday suits, and you can join them. That, together with all of the transing and the gay pride, and oh my goodness. The World Naked Bike Ride has become a traffic-stopping annual tradition in the 20 years since it began, with riders stripping down to their socks, though many sport colorful body paint, and cycling around their city. So this is illegal. This is exposure charges. But the police, for that 1 week during the year, let it go. Okay, wait. This is, hang on a minute. I'm sorry, you guys. This just, okay. So this is going to be the last story of the night before I move to the extension on shadowdavis.com. Oh, and by the way, the website finally gets its upgrade over the next 3 days. I can't even begin to tell you how happy I am about this. So for all of you all access pass holders at shadowdavis.com, everything is going to be so improved for you starting this weekend that you won't even believe it. It's going to be night and day. So much better. If you have been thinking about becoming an all-access member at shadowdavis.com and getting all of the extra content, go ahead and join up because, yeah, it's going to be much better. I'm going to be working on it all weekend long, and I'm also making a transition to a brand new virtual production studio. So because of that, I've got a lot of learning to do the next 3 or 4 days. I'm not going to be doing a show on the website Sunday night. I may do a test run or two on Sunday night. And if I learn it faster than I think I will, then yes, I will do a show. But right now I'm telling you, probably not. However, I may come on Sunday night on the website only and just say hello to you. And we go ahead and check out the new website and all of the things you can do on it, including all of the commenting on your mobile device now. Finally, it's coming. So we're moving to the extension on shadowdavis.com right after this story here. This is Pierre Poilievre clashing with Justin Trudeau in the House of Commons yesterday. And this is hilarious. This the reason that I put this on today. It doesn't cover any ground. It doesn't get anything done. It's just hilarious. Let's watch.
The Prime Minister has had a revelation. In an interview with the Halifax Chronicle Herald, he told how he responded to people asking for him to spend even more government money. And he said, and I quote, "As soon as you do that, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount." Right? Right. Why didn't I think of that? My goodness. Spending money you don't have actually causes inflation. If he's in the middle of having epiphanies, has he also realized that budgets don't balance themselves?
The Conservative Party has been using that approach about concerns on inflation to stand against things like national food programs for kids or dental care for seniors. They have stood and objected against and even campaigned against dental care for seniors over the past many months. But we've delivered to over 100,000 seniors of the 2 million who've already registered for dental care.
You haven't.
Support that they hadn't gotten in years or even decades. But he stands against it with some, made-up excuse around inflation when delivering services delivers for Canadians.
He calls his own words a made-up excuse, Mr. Speaker. You can't make this stuff up. He said that when people ask him, can you send us more benefits or send us an extra $1,000 a month? Well, he responds, as soon as you do that, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount. Right?
Speaker, that is exactly why over the past years we've been focused on bringing down inflation by supporting Canadians, and it is working. For the past 4 months, Mr. Speaker, inflation has been down in the Bank of Canada target range, while we continue to increase supports for Canadians, increase dental care for Canadians with Conservatives that campaigned against, supports for seniors, supports for young people, increased investments in childcare, bringing childcare fees down to $10 a day. These are the investments we're making that do not add to inflation, but add to Canadians' well-beings as they're making ends meet. That's what we stand for, Mr. Speaker.
He finally, for once, thought about monetary policy. He said, as soon as you spend more, inflation goes up by exactly the same amount. Right. And he is right for once. But repeating the same costly promises that he has already broken does not change that fundamental monetary rule. So will the Prime Minister acknowledge that, yes, the economy is about numbers, that people pay their rent in numbers, their gas in numbers, their groceries in numbers, and that the numbers are too high?
I just thought I would play that for you because it's absolutely hilarious. Like Poilievre is, juggling. He's a comic, and Trudeau's. He's using his own words. Poilievre is using Trudeau's own words against him, calling him out in front of the entire country. And Trudeau just stands there and lies. He lies some more, reads talking points and lies. It's hilarious. People can see this. There is a new poll out, and we'll give you the results, or at least the truncated results, coming up in the extension on shadowdavis.com in just a couple of moments. Exactly how far ahead are the Conservatives now as opposed to where they were about a month ago? Is it worse? Is it better? Is it about the same? We'll let you know. Still more coming up on the show regarding the Taxpayers Federation. Also, hang on just a minute. Oh, yeah, there's some vaccines stuff coming up in the extension as well. Probably need to hear. All this and more coming up in the extension in just a couple of minutes on shadowdavis.com for you all access pass holders. We'll see you there in 2 minutes. If you're not a member of shadowdavis.com, an all access member, not just a newsletter member, we'll see you there in 2 minutes. And if not, we'll catch you Monday night at 8 o'clock Central for another Shadow at Night live stream, the full show on social media. Back in a couple of minutes. Love you all, appreciate you all, and I'll see you soon.